What is up, guys? Welcome to a brand new video. Now this is a really cool video and I wanted to bring you it straight away because we got some really cool new items in here. There are actually some brand new items for the mid-season update for the tanks. So there might be some AD items, there most likely will be some AD items and some reworks in here, but they're putting the item changes on the PB ready for testing, and there are two items that are brand new that are pretty cool, but they're the Guardian Angel is getting changed as well, and the Abyssal Scepter Banshee. So there are a lot of reworks in here and like stat shuffles and stuff. Basically, we're going to go over it today very quickly to give some initial thoughts, because there's one item in particular that I am really not that excited to play against, and I just wanted to get some like feedback from you guys so that I can make a better video about this tomorrow or the next day pretty much. This is the new, well, the first thing I guess that they talk about, this is the right post, I'll put it in the description if you want to check it out, but there is, the first thing is the magic resist and the per level changes, basically. Like, not every champion in the game actually gets magic resist per level. Most do, not all do, but now they're actually going to, so they're going to add this in, which is the first thing you can see here and there. But now, the new items, Gargoyle, stoneplate. So they're basically aiming this to be more durable in the context of a team fight. So the idea behind this item is that 40 armor and 40 magic resist doesn't seem that great to start with, but when you have more enemies around you, the item becomes way more efficient and much better. So it's basically for team fighting tanks, not for like a split pushing tank who can split push and team fight. They're making you choose between the two, if that makes sense. So it's 40 magic resist and 40 armor, but if 3 nearby enemy champions are around, it gives you double the bonuses. But it's actually the active part of this, which is 100% ridiculous, and I'm really sad as an AD player right now. If you have if you activate this item in a team fight and you have people around you, so the nearby enemy champions, the 3 enemy champions, you get 100% bonus health for the next 4 seconds, which is ridiculous. Now, this is maximum health, but also current, so it does increase your health total. The actual item, if you're not around 3 enemy champions, is your health by 40%, and it also increases your champion size, which could be cool with Cho'Gath, but not really that important. The other side of this, though, is it reduces damage done to you by 60%. So you're going to have your HP increased by 40%, damage reduction by 60% for 4 seconds, which is on only a 90-second cooldown, by the way. But if your stone skin is active, which is this part here, 3 enemy champions are nearby, then you're going to have the health increase becoming 100% instead. So this item in a team fight will give you 100% bonus health and 60% damage reduction incoming. So that would mean if you have 6,000 health on a HP stacking tank, for example, like with Warmogs and stuff, you're going to have 12,000 health and 60% damage reduction. What in the world is that item? That's pretty much the reason I wanted to make this video, because it seems freaking ridiculous. The other new item, though, is called Adaptive Helm. Now, this is supposed to be against magic damage. So it's kind of like a magic resist item, I guess, more than anything else. It's kind of like a randomins of magic resist, if you want to think of it like that. So it's a 2,800 gold item, which is reasonably expensive, but not ridiculous. One of the other things we didn't touch on with this is only 2,500 gold. That's really cheap for a tank item, to be honest. And we could even see supports, I think, building Gargoyle stoneplate, because you dive in and it makes you much more tanky, even if you don't necessarily have all the tanky items to make you tanky in the first place, if that makes sense. But anyway, moving on to this second one, the Adaptive Helm. 300 health, 70 magic resist, pretty decent actually anyway. Some health regen, cooldown reduction, but taking magic damage from a spell or effect reduces all magic damage after that from the same spell or effect by 15%. So if you have damage over time, for example, you apply some damage over time onto this guy, or this item, sorry, and it's going to be reduced by 15% for 5 seconds afterwards. So it's not really against burst champions, it's against like sustained damage. And this one is really awkward of an item to work in, and it's so situational. Like, I'm thinking maybe a Brand, for example, with his burn, that kind of thing could be pretty decent, or a Syndra even firing her Q over and over. Like, it's spammable stuff. It's not really, I guess a Rise even, this might screw Rise over with the Q, right? Like, you fire your Q off and then the next one does 15% less, but it's a really weird situational item. I'm not that excited about that one. The first new item is ridiculous, but the reworked items are really cool. So Guardian Angel is being moved away from a tank item and towards an AD carry item, basically. The build path has been completely changed. Now, this might not ship exactly as it is right now, but what they're trying to aim it at is basically like a third item for AD carries. 2 damage items, then this Guardian Angel, if you're getting bummed and like if you're getting bent over by a Z, for example, this would be a good third item. That's kind of what they're trying to do. So they actually have 40 AD on this item now, 30 armor, so no magic resist on there anymore, but a bit more of semi-offense defense, right? Think of like Sterix and more Mortiers, that kind of category of item now. But when you take lethal damage, you restore 50% of your base health, which is actually pretty decent, and 30% mana after 4 seconds, and it is still on a 5-minute cooldown. So it's going to be pretty inefficient, like 40 AD, 30 armor for 2,400 gold. It's still not a great deal. But considering, like, if you're forced to buy this, you're already in a crappy situation, it doesn't punish you as hard anymore. So this is actually semi-decent counter to Zed and Fizz and stuff like that if you're going to be working your way through those kind of, like, assassin champions on the enemy team. This would be a good thing for an AD carry to have. Now, if we move on to the next thing, which is Banshee's Veil and Abyssal Scepter. So these two here basically have swapped places. I know it sounds really weird, but they kind of swapping their stats, really. So Banshee's Veil is now a mix between like offense and defense, not purely a defensive item. It's not actually just there for the shield that blocks a spell. So it actually still does that if we read here. A spell shield that blocks the next enemy ability. So it is still there. And if you have no damage taken from any champions, at max level, this is going to be, so level 18, you only have to avoid damage for 8 seconds to then get your shield back up. So that's pretty good. But early game, 44 seconds, that's quite high. So you probably don't want this that early. But it does give you cooldown reduction, 60 magic resist, and 60 AP now. So it is a item for magic champions. So if, for example, like a Syndra who has no mobility, this would actually be pretty good on her because you get some cooldown reduction, you get some magic resist, which is going to be nice. She actually builds from a Negatron cloak, so you can pick this up really early in the lane phase, then build that into a Banshee's later. It still gives you some AP, but it's going to block something like an Annie stun or an Ari charm or something that kind of punishes your lack of mobility, right? Now the Abyssal Scepter, on the other hand, this change is going to actually suck for AP champions, I think. So it builds out with Spectre's Cowl and a Negatron Cloak. This is double magic resist it's building out. So if it gives 300 health, 70 magic resist, health regen, don't really care about that. 10% cooldown reduction, but nearby enemy champions take 10% more magic damage. So this now is a tank item. Abyssal Scepter is 100% going to be a tank item. You do not build this on AP champions anymore, in my opinion. Like, the aura is really nice, but what this is trying to do basically is say, okay, I can build this on my Maokai, I can build this on my Shen if I really wanted to, I could build this on my Alistair support, and I can buff my Syndra mid or my Orianna mid's damage in a team fight if I get stuck in there with this aura item. Which, in my opinion, actually makes a bit more sense, right? Like, the tank is the one diving into a fight and should be the one providing like the debuffs and stuff, whereas the mage is supposed to be more glass cannon and not really there to reduce everyone else's magic resist around them. Like, they're not really that, they're kind of a selfish pick, right? They're there for damage. And so this actually does make sense. And imagine a Mumu with this item. You're already doing the true damage, the bonus true damage. Now after the buff, you obviously do magic damage to all of your kit anyway, so it's going to be a big buff for you, but also you're diving in, and this is like fits 100% perfect in my opinion with a Mumu. You get health, magic resist, tanky, so you can dive in and survive, but buffs all of your damage and all of the damage for the rest of your team that's magic as well. So that's actually pretty crazy. Now we're going to move on to some of the other items. So the last kind of reworked item is going to be Doran's shield. Now we saw this a little bit before. 400 gold, 80 health, restores 6 health every 5 seconds, which is pretty nice. But it's going to be basic attacks that deal initial 5 damage to minions on hit. So it's kind of there as, I guess, like to help tanks last hit in the lane phase. But you actually regain an additional 20 health over 10 seconds, after taking damage from an enemy champion. So if you want to think of this kind of like a Garen's passive, that's a good way of actually thinking about this. It's like it helps you CS a little bit better. It gives you some health, gives you some health regen. But remember, you have to consider this is 6 health every 5 seconds. So if we double that, it's 12 every 10. And this is going to be 20 health every over 10 as well. So you're actually getting 32 health now every 10 seconds if you're like constantly being attacked and stuff. I actually think that's a pretty good change. Like, I think this is actually going to be a pretty good item for tanks and help them survive like Jace and Quinn and Temu and stuff. Whatever ranged harass champions are in the lane phase, they're often really, really hard to play against. But Doran's shield kind of gives you a really good starting place. But now we're going to be moving on to the changed items. So these aren't, like, these are going to stay the same basically, but they're going to readjust the stats. So what they're trying to do now is make you choose, like, basically everything at the moment, the best way to explain this is tank items have a very even split between, like, if this is all of the stats, half of it is going to be health and half of it is going to be like armor or magic resist, right? What they're trying to do is get away from the health, which is really good against everything, and specialize the items into either armor or magic resist. So for example, like, health is really good against magic damage and AD. It's what you go if you aren't sure if you're against a very mixed team, because obviously magic damage and also AD damage will take off that health, but armor only works against AD, and magic resist only works against AP. So if you're against both, health is the really good option, which is kind of why Vayne is a really good answer to that, because obviously the health stacking and stuff like that. But with these items now, they're kind of readjusting them. So if we start with the Sunfire Cape, this is a really good example. Reducing the health by 75 and giving you 10 extra armor. The burn damage has also been massively reduced, but it scales better into the game. So obviously 7 at the start is going to kind of suck. Now, obviously, like, you're never going to get a Sunfire Cape level 1, right? Unless you get like 2 pentas at level 1, which would be pretty crazy. You're never going to get this, so that doesn't really matter, but it does scale into the game a bit better, so it'll be better later stages. And the bonus damage to minions has been increased to 100%. So really what they're trying to do is turn this into, okay, this is like a big bruisery tank in the middle of fights and in the middle of like pushing waves. Tanks don't really have good wave clear, so this is kind of like that option, but it does reduce your training potential, and also it makes it not as good against AP, because Nautilus could like rush this against AP champions, AP tops, and still do pretty well because it did a lot of damage, which doesn't really make sense, I guess. So Cinderhulk is now going to do 100 bonus damage to minions as well, which it already does this to monsters, so this is just better in the side lanes if you're ever going to attack some waves and stuff. The Dead Man's Plate, very similar. Basically 75 health is worth 10 armor in right size. That's kind of gold efficiency wise. But one of the biggest things with Dead Man's Plate is it no longer deals bonus damage unless it's at maximum stack. So you can't just like run at people for just a little bit after the cooldown and actually make it work. Also, basic attacks while you're not at maximum stacks are going to reduce the count by 15. So like, it's not going to completely remove them, but you're going to be reducing it. So really the whole item is designed at running at someone to start with, and then slapping them in the face to do the bonus damage and have the little slow on the thing. So it's like an engaging tool, like chasing somebody. You're actually supposed to run around and stack it and then use it, rather than just kind of run around and like catch someone like right next to you, for example, if that kind of makes sense. It is supposed to stack a bit quicker though if you're running, so it's not, overall it's not really a nerf, it's just a different way of approaching the item, I guess. Random Omen, very similar thing, except thank God for this. This is going to get like blown over by pretty much everybody else who covers this, but crit damage reduced, like that was a massive thing if you bought this item against a Caitlyn or a Jinx, for example. That's been removed completely, which is absolutely ridiculous. The slow duration is also down to 2%, but the slow percentage, the slow duration is down to 2 seconds, but the slow percent has been increased a little bit as well. So it's more effective, but for a shorter time, if that makes sense. This though, I don't know why you would build this anymore. I know it's 300 gold cheaper, but this was like, this is the whole reason you freaking buy this item, and they removed it. That seems, I don't think this is going to make it in. I honestly don't think it, because that doesn't make any sense. Warmork's armor is going to be the max health threshold reduced, so you don't have to have quite as much health, and that's probably because all of these items have had their health removed a little bit in place of armor, so they want to make sure this passive still works, because you know you have to have a certain amount of HP, still works with armor items as well, which makes a lot of sense there. The regeneration is going to be 5%, which is slightly better, and it only goes on to a 2-second cooldown when damaged by minions and monsters, which is used to be 8, I think, from pretty much everything. So this is probably going to be a core item because of this stupid ass, where is it? Where are you, Gargoyles thingy? Gargoyle stoneplate, because of this item and how you can have 12,000 health on a tank. Yes, please, right? 12,000 HP on a tank. Warmork's armor is probably going to be core on every single tank now, I'd imagine. The synergy is just pretty ridiculous. Like, getting double that is crazy. Spirit Visage is getting the health reduced, but the magic resist increased, pretty much in line with everything else as well. That's going to wrap up all of the new item changes. I tried to go over this as quick as possible, but like, I'm not here to rush this out and get as many views as possible. I'm trying to give my impressions of it as well, because obviously, like, I'm playing this game for like 5 years, and I've seen a lot of changes come in, and I have a good idea of what something is going to mean for the actual game, like, going forward. So I wanted to give you my first little insight. Let me know what you guys think in the comments as well, and how this is going to affect the game. But I think this stupid-ass Gargoyle stoneplate is going to break the game. 100% health increase and reduce the damage. Oh, sorry, reduce the damage dealt by 60%. Not the other way. No, it's not the 6% damage reduction. I'm sorry, I'm an idiot. So it's 60%. You deal less, but you're a tank, so it doesn't really matter anyway. But 100% health, 12,000 health on a tank. Yes, please. That is ridiculous. Anyway, I hope you guys enjoyed the video. and I'll catch you in my next video tomorrow.